Murders of children are always harrowing, but this case is also just really unbelievable. And by the end of today's episode, I think you will understand why.
Yeah. Just a quick disclaimer, the content presented in this podcast is based on real events and may contain graphic descriptions of violence, crime scenes and other disturbing material. Listener discretion is advised.
This episode is sponsored by Think Forensic.
Think Forensic are a one-stop shop for all things forensic science and crime solving. They hold experience days, as well as corporate events, team building events, and general education for primary school right the way up to university level, as well as other events and consultancy. There's also a shop where you can get your hands on all things crime solving, from evidence gathering to packaging and collecting evidence, as well as other forensic science equipment.
For more information or to book on an experience day, please visit the website. Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Grave Secrets. We're your hosts, I'm Annie.
And I'm Beth. Today's case, I will warn you, is the murder of a child. Murders of children are always harrowing, but this case is also just really unbelievable. And by the end of today's episode, I think you will understand why.
Yeah.
Although this case was international news at the time, I think it's one that often gets forgotten, unfortunately. Which, again, is baffling to me.
I'd not actually heard
Hadn't
of
you?
this, no.
Oh, wow.
So, and I mean, we're pretty up on our true crime stuff, aren't we? And, you know, watching the news, we send each other cases all the time. But this was one that I'd not heard of, but I thought, is it because of the time? Or...
Yeah. But then I have also been asking around to see whether or not people remembered the case. Again, by using the victim's name. Nobody remembered the victim's name, but when I then showed the picture of the offender, everyone recognised the offender's face.
It's so bad, isn't it?
Again,
And I think
and it's no one's fault. It's just that that's the way that the media portray it.
that's what I was going to say. It is down to the media, and it's down to how the case is portrayed to the public.
Yeah.
So it's always like a picture of the offender, a lot of talking about the offender, and that's why we really like to stay victim focused and give those victims a voice so that they don't get overlooked.
Yeah. So we want to cover the case today to ensure that the name Jamie Lavis is never forgotten. We are starting in October 1997, and I'm going to start off being quite vague, and again, you'll understand why. So this was in the Greater Manchester area, so again, not far at all,
Not a million miles from us, no.
In fact, I'm going straight to Manchester after this. And even more strangely, this case took place in a place called, a lot of places there, Openshaw, and we actually work at a college which is
Openshaw.
which is Openshaw campus on Openshaw Road.
Yeah.
So again, incredibly close to home.
When I researched this, and I went to Manchester the other week, and I was driving down the road where the college is, where we work, and I thought, oh my God, this is so close to where everything happened.
Yeah, so on the 24th of October, a call came into police stating that clothing had been found by two children who had been approached by an older man asking them to take them into the wood. They were frightened, so they ran off, and that then sparked investigators to go out and further
Search.
Yes.
Yeah, search and investigate in the area.
What was ongoing at that time was actually a missing persons case, but it was actually a young, vulnerable boy that was missing. So now we're going to go back to May the 5th, 1997, which is when this missing child was first reported.
I just can't begin to, think of what the family was going through. So the police receive a call from a very worried family to say that their 8-year-old son is missing. So this is on a bank holiday, and Jamie Lavis, who was missing, had gone out with his brother John, and about 9 a.m, Karen, the mother, had shouted them in and said, come on, time for breakfast. John came in, and when Karen asked about Jamie, John had said, oh, he's over at Quick Save.
Yeah.
So Karen had asked John, the brother, to go and get him.
Yeah.
He used to play out quite a lot, and they always used to go over to a place, Quick Save, which is like a supermarket. Not a supermarket, yeah, like a budget supermarket, would you say?
Yes.
I didn't really know how to describe this,
it, yeah.
But Jamie would go out every day and go over to Quick Save, and this was on Ashton Old Road in Openshaw, like we've just said.
I would
so
like
helpful.
to say as well that he was an 8-year-old boy at this point. But because I know what you'll get in the comments, people will say,
"Oh,
well,
you let your
what
kid
was he
do that?"
doing?
Yeah,
it was a different time. The early 90s and the late 90s.
Yeah.
It was completely different. You'd be playing out. You'd get like cans of Coke from the guy out of his garage down the road.
Yeah.
Do you know? You didn't
it was a
think
totally
anything
different time. And Jamie was described as being really helpful. And what he would do is when he went out, he would go over to the Quick Save and he would help the elderly people with the shopping baskets. And in return for helping them, he'd get £1. So bear in mind, if he helped 5 people in the morning, that's £5.
And again,
to a
at
kid,
that time,
that's like your spending money, isn't it?
Yeah.
And quite understandably, Jamie didn't want to come home for his breakfast because he'd obviously thought, it's busy in here, let me stay and maybe make a little bit more money. And you've not got mobile phones and stuff at this point. So Jamie's mum said, she thought, oh, he's not coming back. John's not gone to get him. Just let him stay out. He does this all the time. He's in and out of the house.
Yeah, again, bank holiday weekend means that all the kids will be out, so he'll just be with his mates.
Yeah.
By tea time, though, Jamie hadn't returned home, and his parents said straight away that they knew something was wrong because Jamie was actually scared of the dark. So there's no way that he would have stayed out kind of past tea time. They expected him around 5 p.m. And again, the really close communities, the road that Jamie lived on was like a row of terraces, and they're terraces that are like back to back. So you'd know the community really well. And they went out searching. So neighbours and the family were all out searching at around 8 p.m. And then, unfortunately, at 10 p.m, they decided that, the chances are that Jamie could be actually missing or in trouble. Yeah. So called the police.
So the police officer, we've got Asif Hussain that we're going to talk about quite a lot throughout this, but his role sort of changed from what it was originally. So he was a beat officer at the time when this call came in.
Again, just to say, beat officer, for if you're not in the UK, is people that are out on patrol. So they're responding to things as they happen within the community.
So it's your uniformed police officers, basically. Yeah. He received a call to come into the police station, and the superintendent, Roy Rainsford, which we spoke about briefly just then, advised Asif to go home and put on a suit. So he obviously did this, and then he attended Jamie's family home. And from this point, this Asif was what we call a FLO, so a family liaison officer. They are the person that's sort of in charge with all the correspondence between the police and the family. A bit like a middleman, but it's someone that the family can trust. Where you've not got loads of different... when you've gone through some trauma like that, last thing you want is different police officers come in every day on different shifts. So this family liaison officer is the point of contact for the family.
It's also important from an investigation point of view because, again, when you're in a traumatic situation, you don't know what information's relevant, you don't know what information could be pertinent, and you're thinking 1,000 miles an hour. So having someone within the family home that's just around that situation, conversations will get brought up. You'll learn a lot more about the missing person by
from being
a part of their home.
And it's someone who the family can sort of trust to confide in as well, isn't it? It's sort of building a relationship with the family.
So very quickly in this missing child investigation, they'd put it at quite a high risk case. Jamie was hyperactive, and he'd actually already been diagnosed with ADHD, which, again, for that time period, was probably a lot more rare.
Yeah, because it takes a long time now. So to get that diagnosis back then.
Yeah, and that's also a very early age. So it must have been quite kind of severe ADHD.
His sister actually said in one of the interviews, like, he was always on the move. He was always bouncing all over.
Yeah.
You'd got to keep your eyes on him.
And he didn't really recognise risk either, they said. So in terms of search, they had a helicopter out. There were dog searchers, house-to-house inquiries, of course, and task force search teams. They'd also, they very quickly wanted this to be a very public case, because obviously the more eyes on it, the more chance of someone spotting Jamie.
Yeah.
So they had made posters, there were bulletins going out, and his parents very quickly actually did a press release pleading for information.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoke about press releases before and how sort of important they can be, even though it is so difficult and so hard on the family. It's really emotional for them. But Jamie actually lived with his mum and dad in the Openshaw area in Manchester. He'd got 2 older sisters, an older brother, and then a younger brother, so aged between 16 and 4. So Jamie was like sort of on the younger end. So when we say he was out with John on that bank holiday morning, John was 11, so he was a little bit older than him. He was described by his mum as very lovable, very kind, would help anybody, a very loving child, but also very small for his age, and we've said very vulnerable.
Yes.
Just to put it into perspective, he's 8, but he was wearing clothes for sort of 6-year-olds.
So he
was
really dinky.
Yeah, little for his age.
Obviously, what you want to get out of a press release is not just the kind of the name Jamie Lavis, but also people to come forward with information.
Yeah.
And luckily, quite quickly, a lead came in. So Asif was at their home, and the sister-in-law actually said, "Oh, by the way, before you got here, I answered the door because someone knocked, and they said it was a person with information." So Asif's obviously then going to be inquiring as to who this person is.
Yeah, because even though they spoke to the family, the police would still want to talk to this person, because the family might ask questions, but the police will know what questions to ask, wouldn't they, to get the most out of the information.
So Asif starts asking questions, and apparently this person went and knocked on the door. It was a male, and he said, "I'm just wondering, was it you with the missing little boy?" And then proceeded to describe the clothing that Jamie was wearing at the time, which matched. And so the family invited him into the house, asked him to tell them everything that he knew, and he introduced himself at that stage as a man called Darren Vickers. He was 28 years old. He said he was a bus driver, and he'd only been working in the job for about a month, but he actually lived basically 2 roads
literally
down
round the
from
corner,
the
wasn't
Lavis
it?
family.
Yeah, and he drove like the local bus as well. So it was the 219 bus, and that went along Ashton Old Road. So that's right sort of past the family home, the Lavis family home, isn't it?
And so Vickers said that the reason that he could describe Jamie is because Jamie had actually been on his bus that day. He said not only had he been on the bus, but he'd stayed on the bus all day for over 7 hours. And Vickers then said, "Look, at the end of the day, I then had to say, look,
this is my last run.
Yeah, this is the last route. You're going to have to get off." And he'd not seen Jamie since. So this is great because it's the first lead. Obviously, CCTV isn't quite as good at that stage, but they've still got the potential for it. And on something like public transport, you're going to have footage at the station and potentially footage on the bus.
And it's a bit of a relief for the family because they know that Jamie's not hurt somewhere, struggling, and they can't find him. He was, doing fine on the bus,
So, as you said, Asif wants to talk to Vickers himself. So Vickers had actually promised the family. They must have said kind of, well, can you repeat all of this, please, to our family liaison officer. So Vickers said, yeah, absolutely. I'll come back the following day and I'll give that information again.
So the following day, the 9th of May, we're on now. So that's 4 days since Jamie has been missing. The family liaison officer arrives at the house at 11:30. Vickers is very soon to turn up, half an hour after.
Yep.
So he came very quick, exactly like he said he did. He actually lived with his wife and 2 children. So we've said before, a couple of roads on, very close to the house. He actually said that Jamie got off the bus at Ashton Old Road, near to Quicksave, which is...
Yeah, aligns with what they already knew.
And that he would go over there. They knew he went over to that area.
Yeah.
And that's when he sort of last saw him.
So Vickers has provided some really good information there for the police to then investigate. And in the following days, Vickers then kept returning to the Lavis home, asking if he could help lead any searches because the community was still out conducting them. He said he wanted to be as helpful as possible. He felt awful that he'd seen Jamie and just not had an awareness that he was missing.
Yeah, because if you're the last person to see him, you know, you have sort of got the most information, haven't you, at this point.
But Jamie's older sisters said that they just didn't quite trust Vickers. He kept coming round. He was very kind of involved. And it's a stranger at the end of the day. Like, yes, you've provided helpful information, but they don't know this person.
I think because the family was just so vulnerable that any person who was willing to help, they just opened the doors and let them in and accepted the help, which you probably would do.
Yeah.
But the it turned out like Vickers would come over and stay for dinner and things like that. It just sort of started to intensify,
quite quickly,
a little bit, to visiting every couple of days. And then Asif said, oh, now he's visiting every day. And
you kind of think, like, if he does live 2 roads down, then it would be quite easy to just pop in. And if you're going to ask about the investigation and how things are going, then they might have just said, do you want to stop round for tea?
Yeah.
So you can kind of understand how it gets to that point.
Yeah.
But Asif quite quickly said that he felt like Vickers was manipulating the family and trying to get an awareness of the investigation.
He just said he just felt like something was off, didn't he? And it sort of clarified that when Darren Vickers started doing press releases. I couldn't believe this. Like, as a random stranger, you're not part of the family.
No.
He's doing press releases without giving the police any notice. The press are then having a field day with this.
Yeah.
They're absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
And at this point, you know what this reminded me of when I watched the press release?
Go on.
Ian Huntley.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Just the way that he was like, just so confident and talking on camera, and even like the setup and everything.
Yeah.
I was like, how strange to give a press release.
The one thing that I thought from a linguistic point of view was he used the phrase, we just want him. Right? That was it. That was the sentence.
We just want him.
We
Not
just
want him to come home.
Yeah. Also, who are we to be we now? Like, as I say,
Family.
like, it's a helpful lead, but you are not a member of the family.
And wouldn't you be saying the family just want him to come home?
Yeah.
His mum wants... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, or I've spoken with the family and everyone just wants him to be safe. We just want him.
Yeah.
Full stop. I thought that was really odd. But, again, people now have their suspicions of him, but outwardly, he's helping... He's leading searches.
The family thought of him a bit of a hero, didn't they? You know, he came in with the information. He's now doing the press releases for them. He's getting people out. He was visiting different locations with the family.
Yeah.
So, like, different areas. He was driving the family there. They were searching. They were showing people photos, putting up posters.
But at this point, officers had actually told Vickers that he needed to take a step back because he was now interfering with the investigation, even just those press releases.
It's more of a hindrance, isn't it, for the police?
Yeah. So 3 weeks after Jamie's disappearance, we're now on the 27th of May, Vickers is actually arrested on suspicion because of inserting himself into the investigation.
Yeah.
In interview, he answered questions, but again, just repeated the same story that he'd told initially. Although he did actually say that he had spoken to Jamie. Again, had just said that he'd told him that he needed to get off the bus. No solid evidence, so the police had to let him go. Again, Jamie's mum, Karen, said, when your son's missing, you're just thankful for any help.
Yeah.
So although he was arrested, she still didn't really think that he had anything to do with it, because why else would he have been so helpful? Upon his release, the Lavis family actually threw a party to celebrate the fact that Vickers, who had been so helpful, wasn't being accused of a crime.
It's easy from the outside now to look in and say, if the police were suspecting this person, why weren't the family cooperating? Yeah. But he had been that helpful. Yeah. He'd manipulated a vulnerable family and sort of wormed his way in, didn't he? And you don't know what he's saying to the family behind closed doors. He's there now at all times.
We say he's wormed his way in. By June of that same year, Vickers had actually moved in with the Lavis family into the Lavis home. And again, these are terraced houses. They're not massive houses.
And he lives around the corner.
And he has a wife and 2 girls. Now, there's not a lot of information about his family, really.
If I were his family, though, like in a situation where someone's been arrested on suspicion of something, you wouldn't really want to be in the limelight if you've got the kids, would you?
No. John and Karen were blessed with another pregnancy, so they were actually expecting another child, and they asked Vickers to be the godfather for the fact that he had been such a help in their life at such a dark time. Meanwhile, he is still the number 1 suspect for the police.
This is crazy, because Asif is still there as well.
Yeah.
And this whole time, he is just watching. He is watching what Darren Vickers is doing, listening to what he's saying. But he had sort of took a step back, not intentionally. It was almost like their family had chose to trust Darren Vickers more than they had their own family liaison officer, which is difficult because the police have worked over the last few months to build up that relationship, to get that trust, and then someone just comes in and just takes all that away. Yeah, really difficult. But again, it's then a fine line between still being present and not wanting to kind of cause a ruckus because you still need to be there and get the information. But then I thought if Darren Vickers was the number 1 suspect, he is now living in the house.
Yeah.
Could you live with yourself if something happened to one of the other children?
Yeah.
Because you've got to remember, there's other children in the home.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I could have let him stay there.
No, it's so tough, isn't it?
It's a hard, like you said, there's a line in there which you need to think what's best for the investigation.
Yeah. So they then decided to kind of change course slightly, and they found out that Vickers had actually got prior traffic offences. He'd got multiple traffic offences.
I wonder how he got a job with the bus company then, if he'd got outstanding...
They probably weren't checking, were they?
Yeah, but driving warrant. Do you know what I mean? These were all for driving offences, and you've got outstanding warrants.
Yeah, but then would the bus company have to ring the police and check any convictions? Or
wouldn't they check your licence through DVLA?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it come up on there?
I don't know.
I don't know.
So Vickers is actually charged at that point with those previous traffic offences and actually goes to prison. He serves just a 10-week sentence, but again, the investigative team think, right, okay, we now know that we've got 10 weeks to flat out go even harder than they already have been in terms of the search. Because don't forget, we still haven't found Jamie at this stage.
Yeah.
So they're wanting to do as much as they can while you've kind of got Vickers out of the way, as awful as it sounds.
Well, in that 10 weeks, it's a quite decent amount of time to detach him from the family as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And get him out of the investigation and just out of the way in general.
Yeah, and what actually happened at that point is that one of Vickers' friends came forward and he said... Now, look, Vickers did confide in me, and he said to me that he'd actually told Jamie to get off the bus at the bus station before he then said that Vickers had actually given him a lift back towards both of their houses, dropping him off near Openshaw Old Road.
In his own car.
In his own car. So this is the first time that they've got kind of proof that Vickers has lied. So that didn't align with his statement, and so further added to the suspicion.
Yeah, inconsistencies there, isn't there, already?
Yeah.
So if we go now to 4 months missing, which is in August 1997, the family came to believe that Vickers wasn't the hero that they thought he was when footage was recovered from the bus station. So now we've got the inconsistencies in the statement, and the police went straight to the bus station to look at the CCTV from the bus and the bus station. So footage on the bus, you can see Jamie just running up and down, can't you?
Yeah.
He's pretty... I mean, I know children can't normally sit still, but he is up and down that bus. He's counting money.
But again,
he's stood by the driver.
I don't know where they were in terms of their thinking at this point, but if it were me, I don't think I would have been expected to see Jamie on the bus at all. Do you know what I mean? If I was so suspicious of Vickers, I probably would have thought, well,
he's never got on the bus.
Yeah, he's never been on the bus at all. He's lied about it.
It was actually like that, running about and that sort of comfortable in his environment, that other people on the bus thought that Jamie was the driver's son, because he was counting the money. He was like standing next to the driver. He was stood up on the bus.
He was sat at one point. Apparently another bus driver said that he'd seen Jamie within the driver's cabin at the side next to the window, which is obviously where he should have never have been allowed. So numerous people had actually seen him. And CCTV showed Vickers talking to him at the bus station as well. So we now have confirmation that Vickers has lied. He has had contact with Jamie. But again, there's still no clear motive.
Nothing wrongdoing yet, is there either?
And we still don't know where Jamie is. So.
And this was, the CCTV was from the 5th of May, so it was the day that Jamie went missing. So now we're talking, we're weeks on now, aren't we? We're 4 months. 4 months on from that.
But you just think, so where's he gone from there? Because clearly they've had this interaction. Clearly Vickers is suspicious. But based on what? And you've kind of got no motive. And obviously Vickers isn't saying anything.
He's not, but even though he's not saying anything, you've got this evidence sort of building up against him in a way. And on the 14th of October, they did have enough evidence to charge Darren Vickers, even though it was all circumstantial. They did charge him with child abduction. So there's still nothing about any harm coming to Jamie in terms of, it could still be alive. But they do think, because he was the last person to see him, and the inconsistencies, that he's involved.
If we skip back to the beginning, when I mentioned 2 young boys that had found some clothing, what had actually happened there is 2 young boys, again, this was in the October, who were actually friends of Jamie. They knew him from school. They were asked by a man to help search for Jamie. So this male had said, oh, look, I think Jamie was over here. Come with me and we'll have a look for him. I think I've just seen something in the woods.
He showed him a picture as well, didn't he, of Jamie on...
So these 2 young boys were then being effectively lured into the woods by this man. They, quite rightly, got scared and ran away, told their parents about it when they got home, and their parents then rang the police. So the police, again, arrested Vickers and then expanded their search area to that area of woodland.
So these kids were playing by a river, but it was in an area called Reddish Vale. So it was quite, in parts of this, where he tried to get the boys to go, was in the undergrowth. It was quite overgrown and overrun,
But again, it's quite a vast area because there was a park and then a golf club that kind of ran parallel. And you can imagine that, well, you know the size of a golf club. You then imagine that the park is of a similar scale.
Yeah.
You also think, although some of it is really overgrown, you've got a lot of people going through golf clubs.
Yep.
You've probably got a lot of people going through the woodland that they can get through on the paths. So it's a nightmare in terms of searching for evidence.
So with this, one thing that I couldn't work out in this case was when the boys told the mums and they rang the police, did they know it was Darren Vickers at that point, or did they just think a man had tried to lure them?
I think they just thought it was a man.
It was a man.
The other thing that I couldn't quite work out, obviously they were searching the area, but I don't know whether, I mentioned this clothing that was found, I don't know whether it was in that specific area that the boys had the interaction with Vickers, or whether or not it was just found in the wider search.
Yeah, I think from what I could gather, it was in the area because of what the boys had said.
Yeah.
That's why the police expanded their search to that area.
Yeah.
From what I could work out.
So this clothing was found and it was just on the ground in the woodland. And so they decided then to comb the ground. Bear in mind, we are now 6 months into the search for Jamie. Unfortunately, at that point, they were combing the ground 1 centimetre at a time, and they went 3 centimetres deep and revealed bones.
So that's only basically the top of the soil that's been taken off. So that could have been covered over in those months, couldn't it? It's not to say that Jamie was intentionally covered up.
You also don't necessarily know that it's Jamie, and at that point, bones, they might have thought that there was potential for them to be animal bones. You don't know which bones they found at this stage, but then they find a milk tooth.
So then with your milk tooth and the clothing together, you know that it's a child, and does this clothing match?
Yeah.
So obviously the clothing, it's months later, is taken back for forensic testing.
Yeah.
And I thought this was interesting because in this case, it was the SIO and the exhibits officer who analysed the evidence.
Yeah.
So when he said, we analysed the evidence, he said, the exhibits officer went down to analyse it, and he came back very quickly because within the clothing that had come back, he actually found a jawbone.
But I think, again, what was crazy about it is, obviously they're going to thoroughly search it, but because it had been out in the elements, Roy, the senior investigating officer, said, I want you to lay it all out in the lab so that it can dry off. So it was in the process of laying everything out
that they found
they found this jawbone.
Yeah, and what sort of made this gave it even more confirmation that it was Jamie is that a forensic pathologist came to immediately came out and identified the jawbone as belonging to a child. I thought this was really good how he could do this, between the ages of 7 and 11. We know Jamie was 8 when he was missing, and then they looked at the teeth, and Jamie had some teeth removed not long before his disappearance, so they could also use that and incorporate that in to then identify him. This process took so long.
Yeah, but it's just horrific, isn't it? Because I'm just thinking now, the last thing that officers had seen was a young, happy 8-year-old boy running up and down on the bus, probably having one of the best days he'd had. And the next thing you know, they're investigating a jawbone. They've not even got all of the remains of Jamie. And it's just, I know we're talking 6 months later, but the speed in which it goes from having hope to being completely hopeless.
Yeah, and I just thought this evidence, for you to get a proper confirmation on this from the DNA, because the body was in that much of a decomposed sort of state, it took them 4 months. So it was February 1998 that they got the final confirmation from DNA. So up until that point, it's horrible for the family because they are saying the clothes match.
Yeah.
The jawbone is between 7 and 11.
Yeah, and it was actually the family that identified the clothing. So
that must have been horrible.
Was tasked with going to the Lavis family home. Again, we know that the press are all over this case anyway, so you'd want to make sure that they find out before anyone else, and the family confirmed that the clothing belonged to Jamie, and Asif said that the notification of death in this case was one that stayed with him for the longest in his whole career.
Yeah.
What I also thought was heartbreaking, so Karen's sister was called Jane, and she recalled they asked exactly what had been found. When they said that clothing had been found, they said, what exactly was it? And it was a wax jacket, a Reebok tracksuit, and a single boot. And as we say, the bones were then confirmed. But it was Karen and her mum that actually went to identify the clothing. And when Karen was kind of shown the bones that they did have of Jamie, she turned to Asif and said, where's the rest of him? And you just think it's just horrific, because we always talk about the closure that you would kind of get or want to get from being able to bury a loved one, knowing that you don't have all of Jamie in this case.
Yeah,
is just harrowing.
And it got me as well when the police were saying that they showed Karen the remains and they could fit in a shoebox.
Yeah.
Like, that's your child.
Yeah.
It's
and
awful.
The other thing as well is that obviously it was Karen and her mother that had gone to identify everything. But when they came back, they said that the family just crumbled at that point, because it was that, again, the going from having hope to nothing.
So all this time later, it's now turned from a missing persons investigation to a murder.
And what I thought was interesting, I know you said that they identified the bones as being Jamie, but in that process, because it was taking so long, Kim Doyle, who was the chief prosecutor on the case, was actually undergoing her own kind of process of trying to push for a murder without a body trial.
It's
and again,
so
they're
hard.
very rare.
Yeah. I think she said there'd only been one other that she'd heard of, didn't she, where they'd got a conviction.
But again, imagine you've put all that work in to try and create enough of a case for that to be the trial, and then they get confirmation of the bones and then confirmation that it is Jamie. So they're now pretty certain, obviously, that it is Vickers that has committed this crime. They decide to confront Vickers with all of the evidence that they'd gained in interview. And he turned round at that point and again changed his story. He said it was an accidental death. I hit the brakes too hard on the bus and Jamie hit his head. So I panicked and then I've disposed of the body.
In this case, though, if Jamie had hit his head, there would be some form of blood or whatever on the buses. I don't think they cleaned that extensively.
I did think, you've obviously not thought this through, because surely in other interviews they told him that they'd got CCTV of him with Jamie on the bus. Therefore, he knows that there's CCTV on the bus.
I think he's probably just panicked in this situation, because the bus was actually examined and there was no evidence of this, but no skull was ever found. So it was just the jaw from there. And because of the bad state of the body, a cause of death could never be determined.
No.
Which is also really sad.
Yeah. The one thing that, again, it's difficult. It's one of those where I don't know whether to mention it or not. At trial, it came out that he'd been sexually assaulted.
But I don't know how.
But that's what I was unsure of. I mean, obviously, if it's come out at trial, then it's
been proved.
It's been proven.
Yeah.
But that did. I wasn't sure on that.
No.
But I thought that was interesting. But again, just it doesn't even bear thinking about.
So on the 19th of June, 1998, Jamie Lavis was finally laid to rest and they could have the funeral. And all the streets were lined with so many people. And did you see the part about Karen reading the poem?
So
at the funeral,
Karen said, I don't know what came over me, because I've never written poetry before in my life. But in her grief, wrote a poem, and I'm going to try and read it now without crying. For all the precious gifts in life, however great or small, to have you as my son was the greatest gift of all. Your smile has gone forever, your hand I cannot touch, but I will never lose the memory of the son I love so much.
Oh,
just you just can't even grasp how it would be to lose one of your children,
Yeah.
and then have to keep going for the rest of your family.
Yeah.
And
And obviously having another baby as well.
Yeah. And losing a child in such a way, you know, any family that loses a child, but to lose him in such a horrific way, and also to have to be at that trial and hear everything that he'd gone through.
Yeah, and I think that in this case, the family, well, Karen especially, was on the stand. So she was on the stand for 2 days, and people were questioning her, and, you know, she said she almost felt like a suspect in this trial.
Yeah. Just to confirm, so Vickers was charged with abduction and murder, and the trial actually started on the 2nd of March 1999. So it was at Manchester Crown Court. And again, like I said right at the beginning in the introduction, at this point it was now getting international coverage.
Yeah.
The offender is now someone that the family trusted. The offender is someone that's been on the TV. There's an awful photo of the offender sat either side of Jamie's parents.
Oh, it's horrible, that. And I've seen that photo so many times, and I just think when they look back at that, it must like go through them.
Yeah. So the trial lasted over 7 weeks in total because of the amount of evidence that there was. And the family were completely overwhelmed, which you would be, again, hearing all of the horrific details. As you said, Karen was on the stand for over 2 days. And I know that they've kind of got to cross-examine them, but they were accusing Karen of having slept with Vickers. And yes, they have made kind of what people would call questionable choices.
Yeah.
But as I say, when you're in that situation, you've got no idea.
You don't know how you're going to act, you don't know how you're going to react.
No, and Karen said it was someone that was giving them helpful information, and they believed that, you know, anyone with helpful information should be looked after.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I know that they've got to be cross-examined, but it just seemed really
brutal,
harsh,
didn't it?
And brutal, yeah. So it was a jury of 9 women and 3 men, and they took 2 days after the 7-week trial to reach a unanimous verdict and found Vickers guilty. Justice Forbes, Mr. Justice Forbes was the judge, and he stated, I think his motive is one of manipulation and control, but his ultimate aim is something that we can only speculate about. The one thing that I thought was really lovely at the end of this as well is that the judge praised the work that the police had done, because obviously they'd been criticised very heavily in the press. Also praised the 2 children that had told their parents about their interaction with Vickers, and because that had helped to obviously get justice for Jamie.
Yeah.
But the judge actually awarded them £150 each from public funds.
I imagine as a kid, like that's, and back then as well, we're talking 1997. Yeah. It's a lot of money. It's like 20, is it 20 years ago? Yeah. 30 years. Is it 30? Oh my God.
And also just the fact that they would have then known that they'd helped their friend.
Yeah.
I just think, that was a really nice thing for the judge to have done.
It was. So in the end, obviously we said he was found guilty, but Vickers was sentenced to 25 years. And that's 25 years without parole.
Yeah.
Which is the main thing. Because when you say 25 years, it is a good sentence, but often people can apply for parole before that. They can get out on however long off the sentence with good behaviour. This wasn't the case.
But you know what's awful? Like, we've literally just said it was 30 years ago.
He'll be out.
He could be out.
Yeah. So you don't, because I don't think 1997 has been 30 years ago. I think it has been like a couple of years ago, like 10 years ago or something.
No.
I just don't know where the time's gone. But you're right. It could possibly be out. And you know what? I didn't even think to look at that when we were researching.
No, I didn't.
Because I didn't even think of the timeline.
We're going to be doing it as soon as we get off this.
We are going to be having a look, aren't we?
Yeah, it's just, horrendous case, but it's Jamie that we are remembering. So, truly heartbreaking, but one that we wanted to hopefully do justice.
Yeah.
So thanks ever so much for watching or listening. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.